movie, if you will.
Well done.
Okay, so this Mike Brown thing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ignore the chat for a second. Mike Brown. So, this is weird. It's really, really weird. Let's just start at the beginning. Mike Brown wants an extension. Next year is the final year of his contract, and then there's a mutual opt-out the following year. Opt-in, opt-out, whatever, following year. So he's effectively going into next year like a lame duck, basically, is what you'd say. The last year of his guaranteed contract. Generally, that doesn't happen with coaches. You either extend them or it's a thing. And what was it? It was early last week. I think James Ham wrote an article that got taken out of context. You could make an argument it was some clumsy wording by him. I didn't see that argument. It's one of the clickbait places to ownership's unhappy with Mike Brown. And I think, again, I'm going to paraphrase James here, but it was something like the Kings losing in the playoffs and not making the playoffs didn't sit well with management, I think is what his line was. It's fine. And then so that got me checking around, and one of the people that I trust very much, who's helped us with a lot of stuff before, was like, yeah, it's in negotiation. In fact, it was even funny. We laughed about the whole David's life is a negotiation quote from David Stern. And they'll figure it out. They want him to stay. He wants to stay. They'll figure it out. It's an if, not it's a when, not an if on that. And so I talked about that the next day of the show. And I want to say it was later that day. I think I got a call from a guy I know in media that was, I was like, hey, did you see Woj's tweet? I was like, Woj's tweet? I was like, oh, contract negotiations have broken off. Now, I'm not, it sounds incredibly egotistical to be like, well, it's off of my report that Woj started sniffing around, and it probably was not, but I did find it a little bit strange that happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And it is a negotiation. So after Woj's thing happened, and then I think Mark Stein said something, and I checked again, and it's like, yeah, everyone's saying the truth here. It's just multiple things can be the truth at the same time.
When you hear breakdown, you're like, oh, no.
Right.
Now, is it an oh, no, or is it just like, hey, we're not on the same page yet?
Yeah, let's take a break.
In the end, if it could be as simple, and I don't have a timetable, but if Mike Brown gets closer to what he wants and gets a multi-year deal and the Kings do that, none of this means much as long as you're not hurting people's feelings along the way, which can't happen in negotiations.
Excuse me.
No, because Mike Brown's group should ask for what he thinks he's worth.
And the Kings should try to get him for
less than they want.
Yeah.
Not pinching pennies, but.
And that's where I have a problem with this. That's my big problem, is that from everything I understand, I think it was, I don't want to put words in Sam's mouth. I want to say Sam reported on it. It sounds like the range is $9 to $11 million. That's what he's looking for per year, which would put him on par with kind of what coaches are making now. The new coaches being hired, that's kind of the going rate. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, Jason. Front office and coaches, those are the one places you can splurge, and you should. And if we're talking about it, I know that we're talking about a difference of $1 to $2 million. That's more than many of us will make in our lives. But in NBA terms, that's not a lot of money for a team, especially for a team that has increased sixfold in the last 10 years and is owned by a ton of rich people. Bro, how many free agents, how many signings, we can go through the list. I don't want to call out any players, for example, but I'm sure we could go through the rosters over the last couple of years and go, oh, that was $5 million. That was $3 million. That was $2 million wasted, basically. That's what we're talking about. Here's the bottom line. Numbers that we all know like the back of our hand. Rick Adelman in 8 years was above 500 for 8 years.
Yeah.
Since 1985, only one other coach has been above 500, and that's Mike Brown.
Both years.
He is never, ever not finished above 500 with the Sacramento Kings, and that's something only one other coach has done. So do you want reasons to re-sign Mike Brown and extend him? I'll give you a couple. No offense. All due respect. Ty Corbin, George Karl, Phil Johnson, Eric Musselman. I mean, I could go through the list.
Kenny Nat.
Nat's life, as Timmy wrote. Like, no offense to them, but they couldn't get it done. Now, obviously, rosters were different. I get it. But you have a thing here where you have your GM and your coach that are on the same page, that are working well together. And yes, I was disappointed that we didn't go further in the playoffs last year, and I was disappointed that we missed the playoffs this year. But you still were dealing with almost the exact same record, both above 500, and he's trying to build something, and we all know that stability has long been the issue as much as talent. Worst case scenario, give the guy the extension. If you don't like if for some reason Mike Brown just completely forgets how to coach for some reason in the next couple of years, fire him and eat the money. Don't Kings this. Don't make it a distraction. Don't screw it up. Give him what he wants. Give him what he wants.
Yeah, I think, like, if we go worst case scenario, like you're saying, so Mike Brown's been here 2 years. They made the playoffs, so they didn't make the playoffs, but both above 500. So if next year becomes a non-playoff year, I think you got a bigger problem than just Mike Brown.
I agree with you.
Because now all of a sudden, I think the belief is they've got a good enough roster to be a playoff team. If you now miss 2 out of 3, I think there's other things going on. You have to roster evaluate, certainly coach evaluate, and you might need to just do a whole new. I mean, that I'm going doom and gloom here.
Sure.
But that's the way sports kind of work. And do you have a good thing? Yes, they think they do. And De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, as well as the coaching staff. You have other coach, like Jordy was taken from the staff because people are impressed with what he has done and what the staff has done.
Right.
They've got a good thing. I think they know it. I just think they haven't landed on the sweet spot of the money that makes both sides happy. That's what I'm hoping this all is. And in the end, if that's all this is, then we just have a little bump and let's go forward. Like I said, this is now being done publicly a little bit, so maybe feelings can get hurt. I don't want that to happen.
No.
But in the end, if everybody signs contracts, then we're good.
That's why I'm not freaking out yet, because it still sounds very much like this is just public posturing. Don't know why it's public, but it is, because reporters are good. Like you said, talks breaking down could also be tabling talks. Look, if we're getting into August, September, or should I say September, October, and this isn't resolved, okay, panic time. A little bit of panic. Not for any other reason other than you can't go into this year with him on a lame duck deal. And if you do, then we're all going to bitch about it. And then hopefully November, December, they come, there's nothing saying they can't come to an agreement mid-year, but it just shouldn't be a distraction. It's all that's going to be asked about in preseason. Everyone, and Mike's going to give the whole, like, I want to be here, and this is the only time I'm going to answer this question type of thing, but it's still going to be this cloud.
Yeah, and from the Kings side of things, I think of it this way. Okay, worst case scenario, we kind of discussed it. They just have a terrible year. You don't sign him. He's a lame duck. Well, you have to look for a new coach and maybe even a new GM at that point. Maybe.
Yeah.
On the, I guess, would be a positive side, Mike Brown kills it again. They're a great team, and you haven't signed him yet? I mean, didn't his price just go up?
Yes, it did.
So I don't.
He's got more leverage at that point. And maybe they're okay with that. Maybe they're like, hey, we want you to, we want to pay you more. You prove it, and we want to pay you more. But again, he's been here 2 years. He's been above 500 both years. That's something you can't do here. That's the Rubicon, man. Don't screw it up. You've had 40 years of being here. You've been above 500 a quarter of the time. Above 500 isn't even like, that's not winning championships or making the playoffs. That's above 500. That's just like the minimum of being not a below average to terrible team. Above 500. If you're Boston and you're 5 games above 500,
they don't keep track of that.
They don't even care. Us, we're like probably going to hang a banner for it. Like, we finished above 500. Yay. I understand, kind of to your point earlier, like, expectations change. That's sports. You increase your expectations, but can we also just a little bit, like, take a step back? Yeah, it sucked last year not making the playoffs. Yes, I think Mike Brown had not the best year either. I think there were some rotations that were screwy, some subs that were screwy, some second half adjustments that didn't happen. I have no problems calling out some of Mike Brown's stuff, but Don't screw around, guys. Don't just Vivek, you're doing this is one of those times where Vivek needs to step in. And the only caveat I would put on this as we go to break, Jason, and I hate saying this because if I don't, we're not doing our jobs. But if I do, it starts crap. And I can't underscore more that I've heard nothing to support any of this. But honestly, the only thing where I would take pause at this is like, is there some sort of rift between Monty and Mike Brown? Is there something else going on behind? Is there a player issue? Is there? And I've heard nothing about, nobody's heard anything about that. Right. I can't imagine that being the case. But I'm saying that's the only way this would be understandable. And obviously, that's very likely not the case. Quits Vivek, step in. You've worked so hard at kind of rehabilitating the image as an owner, and we've praised him many, many times this year. This is one of those times where ownership's got to step in and be like, what does it take to get it done? Let's get it done. Let's get this out of the way. I'm tired of getting hits.
Yeah.
Let's go. Anyways, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, 3 for Matt.